Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I'm delighted to return to the amazing book, The Magic of Psychotronic Power by Robert B. Stone. We've covered this in 2 separate episodes. To me, it's one of the best books that Robert B. Stone ever wrote. He's talking about the scientific power of consciousness to change matter and the world. And many of his teachings are very simple to apply and use. In our last episode, we covered the power to overcome superhuman obstacles, such as infestations, ants, and weather. And it was very fascinating, the stories that he had to tell. The amazing thing about Robert B. Stone's teachings is the techniques he gives are very simple to use, and they work. Today, I wanted to cover a chapter he has on how your hands crackle with creative energy to make other people's wishes come true. And this addresses the idea of the way your hands utilize energy. We've discussed this in previous episodes, the Healing Hands episodes, as well as how to create an energy ball. In both of those cases, many people have resonated with those teachings. I believe the hands are way more powerful than we realize. They're connected to our chakras, they have their own energy centers, and they can be used as a device that sends and receives energy. So I wanted to cover what Robert B. Stone had to say about this phenomenon. How your hands crackle with creative energy to make other people's wishes come true. In this chapter, you learn how to focus psychotronic energy with your fingers to be like a genie for anyone you wish to help, and how each time it focuses higher voltage for greater miracles for yourself. You learn finger-pointing techniques for laser-like power. You learn to receive valuable information through your hands via a pendulum and via a finger technique, and how to put a glass of water to work with your finger energy to solve any problem. A physicist who teaches in a university department of nuclear engineering spoke to a group of teachers of ESP and psychic functioning. There is a division in the society between those oriented to the physical world and those oriented to the psychic world. I am of both worlds. I have done research in physics all my life. I am now interested in continuing that research in other dimensions. Once a gentleman named Einstein spoke of the 4th dimension and proved this was a useful concept. I feel that this psychic realm is for real. I feel that these other dimensions of understanding, of love, are just as real as the 3 we deal with in our mathematical models we call engineering and science. I would like to understand the psychic dimensions just as well as I understand these physical dimensions. He is not alone. He said this about the time that other scientists were using the term psychotronics to designate the kind of energy that is at work in psychic functioning. The greatest advantage of this to people in general is that they can go about using this energy to create a better life without being crucified, burned at the stake as a witch, or subjected to harassment, ridicule, and other modern means of persecution. This use bears this promise of perfect health, immense power, unlimited wealth, and winning your heart's desire. But it does not come totally without an effort. You do have to lift a finger. The hands of man are one of the most highly evolved organs of his body. With some 25 joints, they are capable of 58 different motions. They are creators of comforts, crafts, cultures, civilizations, and even conversation and other forms of communication. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, founder of Transcendental Meditation, once handed the author a flower after holding it momentarily in his hands. The flower remained perfect for nearly 2 weeks. If you think I am suggesting that the Maharishi invested that flower with a special energy that kept it from wilting all those days, you are perfectly right. Except that you do not have to be a guru to have this energy in your hands. You have it right now, whoever you are. In this chapter, you will learn how to use your hands in practical ways to help yourself and others to gain special benefits. More than putting life into a flower, you will make the fondest wishes of your friends and of yourself come alive. The law of Psychotronics. Action plans from this chapter on will provide instructions on applying psychotronic power in special ways. These action plans will work even if you have not done the previous action plans having to do with going to your special room, and also with hooking up to the cosmic psychotronic generator and getting agreement from universal consciousness. But they will work more effectively if you have performed these previous action plans. You'll have magnified the power of your psychotronic energy field manyfold. There are other ways to magnify your psychotronic energy. Pyramid power is psychotronic power, the power of the pyramid shape. Even simple living room models now available to sit under and meditate can produce sizable psychotronic increase in a matter of minutes. Pyramid power was originally discovered through the realization that carcasses of dead cats and dogs found in Egyptian pyramids were not decaying. Sleeping with the head to the north is also said to increase psychotronic energy by utilizing the Earth's magnetic field. However, these ways involve the use of aids outside the sphere of consciousness. Your consciousness, properly directed, can provide you with all the psychotronic energy you can possibly use, with plenty left over. Connected to the cosmic psychotronic generator, and with the agreement of universal consciousness as spelled out in previous action plans, you are like a powerhouse ready to electrify the world you live in. Your hands can crackle with this power. Couple your hands with your imaging faculty, and you can send sizzling energy to get things done. Other people jump to your aid. Lucky events take place in rapid succession. Obstacles and opponents fade. You get what you want. Here is the law of Psychotronics. Do for other people first, then do for yourself. In doing things for other people, you build up a credit balance in universal consciousness. When you're ready to benefit yourself, the prizes you seek have a downhill road to follow. They come much more quickly and with far less effort. Ralph A. wanted more free time. His job as a newspaperman was far too demanding. He liked the work, but he also liked traveling, playing bridge, going to sporting events, and sunning at the beach. Knowing how to use his psychotronic powers, he visualized himself in all of these pursuits. But it did not happen. I advised Ralph to help other people first. Young people came to him frequently with dreams of becoming newspapermen. He had turned them away, saying it was an overcrowded field. Now he decided to help them in that direction. He assisted with their resumes, told them to whom to see and where and how to act at the interview. One day he was called in by his editor and told he was being given a new assignment, to write a column. It meant more money, more free time. It was exactly what he wanted. And by coincidence, the person he was to train to take over his old job was one of the young people he had recently helped. Triggering action in other people with your hands. Point at another person. Now point in the direction you want him to go. Finally, sketch with your pointed finger on the palm of your hand what you want him to do when he gets there. You have just increased the desire of that person. His motivation will now be nearly irrepressible. People have been talking with their hands even before language was discovered. When language came into use, the hands continued to be used to talk with, to add emphasis, energy to the words. The angry taxicab driver gesticulates with his hands as he swears. The construction foreman signals with his hands as he calls for the crane. The housewife demonstrates with her hands as she explains to a neighbor what happened. In Psychotronics, there are special ways to use your hands that focus your energy like a laser. One way is to point. Begin using finger pointing to help another person. There are many ways to help another person and to point in the process. Point out a direction. Point to the right person to see. Point to the article sought. Contrary to the taxicab driver, foreman, or housewife, you are calm as you point. Being relaxed and serene permits your energy to flow. Take action for yourself by taking action for somebody else first with this action plan. Action plan to increase your hand energy for doing good. Give advice or instructions to somebody who has indicated his need for your help. Point at that person, not threateningly, but softly and deftly with the index finger of your stronger hand. Use your hand to help you explain what the person needs to do. Help the person get started using your hands wherever possible. Shake hands when parting. Place your left hand on top of his hand, thereby using both of your hands to grasp his. Later, whenever you think of your friend's project, see him successful while you relax. Going to your special room is optional. How to step up the power in your hands. These hand motions, gestures, and movements seem simple enough. You've used them before and no miracles took place. Why now? Well, something new has been added. You are now aware of the power in your hands. You are consciously using the hands for power. This conscious awareness converts the normal energy flow into a bolt of crackling power. American Indians who know how can create a surge of power in their hands that make the person they touch jump back with the shock of it. Hawaiian kahunas can produce this energy in the form of heat and make their hands stinging hot. Both cultures also use a rubbing of the hands process to generate power in their hands. Naturally, this is not just a mechanical process of rubbing two hands together. It needs to be done in a relaxed state, supported by the conscious awareness of exactly what you're doing. The next action plan can be used once as a practice plan before being put to work for your benefit or the benefit of your friends, colleagues, or relatives. In applying it in practice, it is helpful to use a simple thermometer in your hand to test the temperature before and after. Hold the bulb between your fingertips for 2 minutes before and 2 minutes after. Compare the readings. Important: do not let the thermometer occupy your attention. If raising the temperature on the thermometer becomes your conscious concern, you are turning off your psychotronic energy. The thermometer is just incidental to the procedure, a means of giving you confidence in being able to increase the power of your hands to make things happen. Saying, "Do not think of the thermometer," is like asking yourself not to think of a red elephant. The mind seems to move right in. So the trick is to play with the thermometer between your fingers on a few occasions to acquaint yourself with the feeling so that later you're accustomed to it and can ignore it. Action plan to add more voltage to your hands for greater power. Hold your hands in prayer position. Rub the palms slowly and gently together. See the cosmic psychotronic generator providing you with power that enters your body at the crown of your head and flows through your arms into your hands. Visualize the color orange surrounding your hands as you rub them slowly together. Separate your palms, keeping the tips of your fingers together, seeing the orange light getting brighter where your fingertips meet. And by rubbing the hands vigorously together for 30 seconds, seeing the orange light get brighter and brighter until it turns to white hot. Use your hands as soon as possible in encouraging action by another person through pointing and gesticulating. If you are using your hands for healing purposes, this action plan will increase their effectiveness. If you use your hands to point to goal charts or sales curves and quotas as you project visually for attainment, your prior use of this action plan will increase their effectiveness. Person-to-person relationships will be more under your control. Again, begin by doing for others before doing for yourself. Tools that make the hands act as if they had a supermind of their own. Dr. Christopher Hills of London owned an art gallery in Kingston, Jamaica. He had always been interested in the ability of the mind to detect information as well as project it. In fact, his home in London had become a center for consciousness growth through yoga, meditation, and other disciplines. One evening, while meditating on the beach in Jamaica, he was intensely aware of the cosmos. It seemed that it was manifesting to him in more intimate terms. It was an exciting experience. Were his yoga and meditation making very real changes in his attunement with universal consciousness? It appears that the answer was yes, because Dr. Hills began to feel energy with his hands in surges of great awareness. He could sense north by stretching his arms out and slowly rotating until he felt the magnetic flow. He could use a dowsing rod and a pendulum to detect fine energies that were modulated with intelligence, much the way radio waves are modulated with sounds of voices or music. Dr. Hill spent time in India, where this level of consciousness had been developed by gurus. He was quickly accepted by them and given the title of Maharishi, meaning great researcher, and Acharya, meaning inspired teacher. In 1973, Dr. Hills moved to California, where he founded the University of the Trees in Boulder Creek, to both researcher and teacher, emphasizing what he calls the science of supersensonics. In a sense, this science might be called the actualizing of psychotronic power. One thing that makes it different than other sciences is that the researcher becomes part of the research. The experimenter becomes part of the experiment. A mathematician comes home at night and his life is pretty much as it was. A chemist gets up in the morning and goes to work, and he could be a lawyer or an accountant as far as how he feels and behaves is concerned. But the psychotronics practitioner becomes a superman. He is able to do things that make other people gasp. Dowsers have been using forked sticks for generations to locate water and the right spot to dig for wells. They heard it could be done, so they went ahead and did it. Today, there is an American Society of Dowsers that meets once a year, usually in New England. Some can dowse for water without help of a stick or rod. Others can dowse for minerals and other materials. There are many theories shared on how this detection of information is able to take place. Dr. Z.V. Harvalik, a working physicist and successful dowser, calls the cause an electromagnetic stimulus received in the venal gland, forwarded to the brain, and then transmitted to the muscles of the forearm. Scientists have observed an interesting application of the detection of information with the hands. Blind people can see with their hands. Colored paper and geometric shapes can be accurately described by blind people holding their hands above the cutouts. Falling into old patterns with their thinking, some of these scientists are calling this dermo-optic sensitivity and hypothesizing that the cells of the skin possess miniature eyes. To the psychotronic scientist, this sounds ludicrous, but to the conventional scientist who uses this approach, the psychotronic theory appears ludicrous. While the scientists research, hypothesize, and debate, the rest of us can use whatever it is to our advantage. We can desensitize our detection of information through our hands with devices such as the divining or dowsing rod and the pendulum. How to get answers through your hands with a pendulum. Some years ago, a group of fishermen were overdue in the New Hebrides area. Their families were concerned. An air search was conducted. There are so many islands in the area that the search had to be abandoned. The relatives heard of somebody who could use the pendulum to obtain information. The pendulum was just a piece of metal on a string. It was held over a map of the area and slowly moved across the map. At one point, it began to move. The relatives chartered a boat and went to that island. They found the maroon party there. You can use a button or a string or a pendant. By holding the string with your elbow resting on a table, you can let the pendulum dangle over a map, a floor plan, a street map, or ads in a newspaper, or your classified telephone directory. When you gradually move the pendulum, be sure not to agitate it. It will agitate apparently of its own accord when it's over the answer to your question. Of course, it is not really of its own accord. It is your psychotronic detection that is being magnified. The subtle responses that you might not otherwise be aware of are given greater visibility by the lever action of the pendulum. Practice the following action plan on things you already know the answer to or unimportant matters until you find you are consistently accurate. Then you know that communications have been established with the pendulum and you can use it for the jackpot. Action plan to obtain valuable information through the pendulum. Make a pendulum using a ring or button and a piece of string, or use a piece of jewelry on a chain such as a pendant. Keep it on your person and near you for days. This step can be shortened by holding it in your hands for a few minutes as you go into your special room. Create an answer sheet with yes on one side, no on the other side, and other possible answers printed clearly in between. If the problem or information involves a map, diagram, or floor plan, use instead of the answer sheet. Sit with your elbow on a table and the pendulum hanging quietly over the answer sheet or map. Ask the question, directing it to the universal consciousness. Move your arm so as not to agitate the pendulum, permitting it to hang over one part of the answer sheet or map, then another, crisscrossing in grid fashion until there is a sudden movement of the pendulum. Repeat the process to be sure. When you get a consistent position or reply from the pendulum, accept the information. Everybody can use the pendulum accurately with practice. I've seen a young man use it to find out whom his girlfriend was with that night. A salesman used it on a street map to determine the best streets to solicit that evening, and his business improved. An Arizona prospector used it over his claim map and made a strike worth in the tens of thousands of dollars. There have been many occasions when the author has used it as over a calendar to get the right date to schedule an activity for optimum results. Over an astrological chart to know a person's sign before I met him so as to have insight into how he might react to a business proposal, or a list of names of available experts to know the right one to choose. One time I failed. I was in Tokyo on a television show with other psychics predicting the future for the year to come. To make the show more interesting for the viewing audience, the producer said he would turn on a radio to hear the running of a steeplechase race and asked us all to pick the winner. I did not feel comfortable about this, but as it was not solving any human problems, decided I would play along. I decided to use my pendulum, took it out and held it over the list of entries and odds that was distributed to all the predictors. As soon as I did this, all 4 cameras zoomed in on me. I have been on many television shows before, but to have 4 cameras trained on my pendulum did, I confess, cause some tension. The pendulum was agitated wherever I held it. I ended up picking the wrong horse. If I could read Japanese and had just picked the favorite, I would have been better off. It won. Once you set up a communication between the pendulum and your higher self, you're able to use any kind of psychic lever, such as the divining or dowsing rod. The dowsing rod can be used in the field or at home in close quarters, but it is not as sensitive over small maps as the pendulum. United States troops used the dowsing rod in Vietnam to locate funneling Viet Cong. Techniques vary. To do it, just get a forked stick. Hold the forked part in each hand, the rest of the stick pointed forward. Ask your question, move around and forward until you feel it pulling you to the object of your search. Your hands fairly crackle with psychotronic energy. The more you realize this fact, the more energy flows. Soon it can become a bolt of energy that can knock people unconscious. The late Catherine Kuhlman developed herself as a channel for this power in the healing process. And people who came on the stage for healing collapsed into the waiting arms of attendants as this energy struck them. This same phenomenon is being repeated by other healers in the country today. This power grows as long as it has the agreement of universal consciousness. The cosmic psychotronic generator is then hooked up with your own mind so that whatever you desire is activated by the very force of creation itself. Skeptics and evildoers land in the same powerless vacuum. Skepticism breaks the circuit in your own consciousness. Evil breaks the circuit in universal consciousness. Believe you can. Then do all the good for one, others, and two, yourself, in this order. Anything you can think of. How to create a battery out of a glass of water, which then takes over for you. Another lever for hand energy is water. It is very special, as water seems to be a stage closer than solid matter to the nebulous world of ever-creating thought. Water and electricity are both intermediate types of stages in the creative process. Magnetic and electrical phenomena are usually the easiest for beginner psychics to perform. Albert N. was just getting interested in parapsychology and thought transference. One morning he was describing a funny cartoon to his mother. The woman says to the psychiatrist, "The phone is driving me crazy, it never rings." With that, Albert turns to the phone and says, That should do it. Ring, phone, ring. Before his mother could even begin to smile at his antics, the phone rang. Coincidence? Fine. But listen to the conversation. Hello, Albert speaking. Albert, oh, how did I get you? This is John. I must have dialed the wrong number. His best friend at the university, the one most tuned into him, had responded to Albert's mental call. Psychotronic energy finds paths of little resistance through water and electricity. You can use water to command solutions. Water is called the universal solvent. Everything dissolves in it. Problems placed in water yield solutions. Hermes, the philosopher whose wisdom made him a god in the eyes of the Egyptians and Greeks, taught secret methods to the rulers of those countries. As the occult is de-occulted, the secrets have been uncovered and examined. They make sense in the light of modern research into psychotronics. One of Hermes' secrets was a way to get what you want using a glass of water. See what you want as you peer into the water, as if you were looking into a crystal ball into the future. Drink the water, image and all, knowing the image of your goal will enter every cell of your body and activate it toward that accomplishment. Today, we know that living cell is in touch with living cell. Activate a goal in the cells of your body, and cells in human bodies everywhere hear the call. What kinds of problems will water help you to solve? Just about every kind. Here are just a few examples. Attract the right person to do some task that you want done. Move into a better job or position. Bring the right mate to your side. End a situation that is causing suffering and anxiety. Find a way to circumvent people in your way. Communicate with somebody even if you do not know where he is. Get out from under the control or demands of somebody. Create a flow of money to get what you need. Turn a weakness into strength. Win back a love partner you have lost. Bring retribution to somebody who is doing wrong. Get an answer to some problem that does not seem to have an answer. To perform this action plan using water, you will need a glass of water and a slice of lemon. You will perform it 3 times. The best time to start is before retiring at night. Action plan to a solution activated through water. Fill a glass with water, at least half full. Squeeze 3 drops of lemon into it. This acts to make the water a better conductor of energy. Standing, hold the glass of water with the tips of your fingers of both hands, making sure the fingers are separated and not touching each other, to prevent flow of psychotronic energy from one finger into the other and ensure greater flow into the water. Turn your eyes upward to contact universal consciousness. State your problem. Affirm your confidence in the water as a conductor of your request for a solution. Drink all of the water. Repeat twice, once right after arising and again later that day. We have found that solutions are activated swiftly with these water techniques, usually within 72 hours. How the fingers can activate super psychotronic power to make your wishes come true. When you keep the fingers separated, your psychotronic energy flows out through your hands to enlist outside help. When you put the tips of your fingers together, your psychotronic energy builds up your own generating system to create inside reinforcement. A well-known mind course teaches a 3-finger technique to trigger greater awareness. The student accepts conditioning that whenever he puts the tips of the first 3 fingers of either hand together, he triggers greater awareness for memory and ESP. And it works. It works so well that it was declared illegal for a while at a Florida college where a girl student had used the 3-finger technique to answer a difficult test question by reading the professor's mind. It turned out nobody else in the class got that question right because the professor had neglected to cover that ground. On questioning the young lady and discovering she had a way of reading his mind, putting the 3 fingers together in a test was declared prohibited. Most teachers of this mind course explain the miraculous working of the 3-finger technique as a conditioned triggering device. Pavlov's bells were a triggering device to start the flow of saliva. To bring this about, all he had to do was ring the bells whenever he fed the dogs. Then the bells triggered saliva. In the three-finger technique, the student accepts the conditioning, and from that time on, it works. But more is at work than conditioning. Psychotronic energy is being focused inwardly to reinforce the thought-action process. Use the following action plan to increase the power in any action plan you use to control people, situations, circumstances, health, and luck. Action plan to accelerate results. Perform your action plan. Put your three fingers together in your special room or early in the plan if no visit to the room is made. Know that by putting your three fingers together that you're activating greater energy and accelerating results of your plan. Accept success. Morton D., a business consultant, was intrigued with the subject of psychotronic energy. He kept asking for more and more information about scientific research in the field. "Why don't you stop studying it and start using it?" I suggested, when I had run out of literature for him. "What do you need right now?" "A new client," he shot back. "Okay," I replied. "Next time you have a chance to make a new client, keep these three fingers together." I held up my left hand with the tips of the thumb, forefinger, and middle finger touching. And nothing. That's all there is to it. Morton D. called me less than a week later, absolutely exultant. He had landed that new client. It was a $10,000 contract. This concludes the chapter, How Your Hands Crackle with Creative Energy to Make Other People's Wishes Come True. I highly suggest you get the entire book, The Magic of Psychotronic Power by Robert B. Stone, and there are so many other techniques described in that book. How to use your eyes, how to use psychotronic power for prediction, for energy, for better health, for love, for wealth. It's all there. It's fascinating, and I just love the way he describes this. He has good examples that he gives. I have a water meditation on the channel, and I've used that many times. Charging my water is a powerful technique I have used, and I suggest anybody else to try it. I've used pendulums. I've used everything that he describes in this chapter to great effect. We have a higher self and a deep intuition inside of us, and in many ways it's difficult to access it. It is a part of us, but we do not regularly communicate with it. So a lot of people devise techniques to communicate with this part of ourselves, leaning forward or back, and in particular, the pendulum is one way to do it because it's a very finely tuned vibration that allows your subconscious and higher self to communicate with you. I would love to get any stories that anybody has in the comments of how you might have used pendulums or dowsing or any technique like that. Muscle testing is one that you can do. Once you access these very subtle energies in your body can respond and communicate with you. And the more you do it, the more tuned you are with it. The example that he gives in the story of being in Japan and everybody's looking at him is very common. It is a very subtle energy. And if other people are involved, or if you're nervous or fearful, it will affect the response that you get. So you must come into it very relaxed, in the right brainwave state. And a lot of people can't be watching you do it. What happens is other people's observation of what you're doing can affect that psychotronic power. What I'm most fascinated by is a research study of the unique power of the consciousness. Someday I believe we'll be able to monitor it just like we can monitor electricity. It is a unique energy, and the more we tune into it and understand how it works, the better we can use it. And absolutely, he is correct. If you work on this power for others, it seems to be more effective when you do it for yourself. So if I'm trying to help my wife out, my son out, a friend, and I work on that, then I apply these sort of techniques to myself later, it seems that I have a greater flow of power. I have several theories on this, but I think that the more you help others, the energy that you get flows more freely to you, and you have that energy available to you when you work on yourself. You get more energy. The psychotronic energy comes to you and through you when you help others, and so there is a greater channel of energy for you to use. but who knows the real reason for it? So let me know if you've got a technique where you can work with this energy to test it out, to communicate with your subtle subconscious and higher self energies. I'd love to know what they are. There's probably dozens or infinite ones that you can use. So check out the book, The Magic of Psychotronic Power. I'm sending love to everybody right now through my hands. I'm just sending it out to everybody so you can feel this joy right now, crackling energy of love and happiness and joy, hoping that all of your wishes come true now. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.